Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about how to read rhythm. Now, I know this isn't just a problem for percussionists, and I noticed that this is a problem all across the board where musicians just have a problem with, or at least beginning musicians, it's very hard to have a sound understanding of how to read rhythms. So today I thought I'd break it down so that it's very easy to understand just how to read rhythms, how to apply reading rhythms to different time signatures, all this interesting stuff. So to give this video a little bit of structure, I'm going to start off by doing a quick review of what we learned in the past couple of lessons and specifically relate it back to how to read rhythms. Then I'm going to give you 4 easy steps you can apply to learning how to read any rhythm no matter what. And finally, we're going to finish off by giving you 2 methods that make sight reading rhythms easier, a lot easier. And I really like the second percussive method a lot. So we're going to talk about that at the end of the video. But first, let's talk about time signatures and what they mean. So if you remember from the video I made about time signatures, we can get 2 little pieces of information from looking at a time signature. The top number here means, or it refers to the amount of beats, the number of beats, the amount of beats in a bar. In this case, it's 2. In this case, it's 2 beats per bar, okay? Now, this bottom number here, this is the number that confuses people. And if you don't already know what this bottom number means, I'm not really going to actually explain it in this video because that'll just take so much time. So go back and watch my video about time signatures, and then by the end of that video, you'll understand. This number refers to the type of note that gets the beat, or the note that is worth 1 beat. And in this case, we see a 2. So that means it's referring to a half note. So our half note is equal to 1 beat. We can do some very quick math here, and we can see that there are 2 beats in a bar, and each half note is worth 1 beat. So that means we can have 2 half notes in 1 bar. And that's what I've done right here. So here, I'm going to write in this cool red color. This is beat 1, beat 2. Right, each half note is worth a beat, and we can have up to 2 beats. 1 beat, 2 beats, 1 beat, 2 beats. And if music was as simple as this, then there would be no need to learn how to read rhythms, because every bar would look exactly like this. But unfortunately, music gets complicated, and that's where trouble starts to pop up. So we're going to show you, or I'm going to show you, what you can do when we have to subdivide. Subdividing just refers to splitting beats into halves, into quarters, or splitting up the beat. What does that mean? Well, I want you guys to recall the tree diagram that I brought up earlier in my the math behind rhythm video, and we're talking about half notes right now. So if we are thinking about half notes, so let's draw a quick half note here. This half note is worth 1 beat. Okay? We can put as many notes within 1 beat as long as they add up to the value of a half note. And what I mean by that is this. If we just apply some quick math to this half note, if you remember from my earlier video, I said that 2 quarter notes are equal in length to 1 half note. That means when we go this way, we're dividing by 2, right? We're dividing this half note into 2, which means that each of these quarter notes is now worth half of a beat according to the time signature. So in this time signature, each quarter note is worth half of a beat. So if we were to look at these first 2 bars here, so this is bar 1 and this is bar 2, and we wanted to assign the beats here. So these are half notes, right? So these are half notes. Each one is worth a full beat. So there's no issue there. Then we move on to the second bar. The first note is a half note. There's no issue there, right? It's a half note. We add 1 beat. We already know that. We know that from here, in this time signature 2-2, there's 2 beats in a bar, and each half note is worth 1 beat. But then we get to the issue of having 2 quarter notes, okay? So these 2 quarter notes, what do we do? Well, this is where we have to subdivide the beat. We have to divide the beat into 2. And how do we do that? Well, we just do this. So we write the second beat above this quarter note, because this quarter note lands on the second beat. But this quarter note here is kind of awkward because it lands halfway through the beat. So what we do here is we just kind of say and. But in this video, I'm going to shorten it to just, what the heck? But what most people do is they just shorten it to a plus sign to mean and. So this looks like 1, 2, and. So this, if we were counting beats, this quarter note here lands on the and of beat 2. That's what we'd say. It lands on the and of beat 2. It's the halfway point of beat 2. And we can apply that logic even further. So let's look at these two quarter notes here. This is beat 1 because this lands on beat 1, and this second quarter note lands on the and of beat 1, so 1 and. But now we run into eighth notes, which makes things a little bit more complicated, and for that we have to return back to our tree diagram here that we're building. We can subdivide quarter notes even further into eighth notes. And in fact, 2 eighth notes here, if I can draw well, 2 eighth notes, we can find 2 eighth notes in every quarter note. So that means if this is worth 1 beat, this is worth a half beat, then this is worth a quarter of a beat. Each one of these are worth a quarter of a beat. A quarter of a beat. Because we divide by 2 again. And this is kind of the math behind everything. And that means that these first 2 eighth notes land on the first 2 quarters of beat 2, right? So this first eighth note lands on beat 2, but the second one lands on beat 2 and a quarter. How do we say that? Well, we just kind of write the capital letter E. I'll make that look a little bit better. We just write the capital letter E and we say 2E. And this quarter note lands on the and. So this sounds like 2E and. 1 and 2E and. Just like that. Remember, these can be pushed together. These 2 eighth notes really just equal a quarter note. So you can kind of think of it like that. So this is kind of what this bar would look like. And if we look at these first 3 bars in the context of this time signature, we might just see that this starts to make sense. And if it doesn't, don't worry. We still have a lot of content to get through where I'll explain it over and over again. And by the end of this video, I am sure you will understand this concept. Okay, and these last 2 bars, or this last bar is very easy because it's just 2 eighth notes. It's the same thing as the first bar, there's just 2 half notes. It's the exact same thing as the first bar, so that looks great. We're going to apply these 4 steps that I mentioned earlier to counting out rhythms in a new time signature. So we're going to be operating in 4/4 time today. So step 1 is time signature. We have to identify the time signature. So in this case, we're looking at 4/4. We have 4 beats per bar. And down here we have the quarter note. And if you didn't know that, I have a whole video about time signatures. That means if we do our math, we have 4 quarter notes in a bar. 4 beats in a bar, each quarter note is worth a beat, 4 beats per bar, 4 quarter notes. The next step, step 2, is to write out the beats above the bar line. Okay, let's do that. So if we look at this first bar, all we need to do is do that because each quarter note is worth 1 beat. There's no confusion there. There's no subdivision or anything. It's literally just 4 quarter notes. Each one is worth a beat. Same thing here. Each quarter note is worth 1 beat. And it's the exact same thing
for the rest of the phrase here.
So notice how the next step, step 3, is to subdivide the beats when necessary. That's the key, when necessary. This first line of music here, it was not necessary to subdivide because no subdivisions occurred. Okay, so we did not have to do that. And the last step is to take it slow and clap it out. Just for demonstration purposes, I'll clap out this first line here. Okay, so just the first line. I'll give us a bar of 4/4, so I'll count to 4 and then I'll clap it out with my hands, okay? 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Awesome. Now, I want to start working on this second line. We're going to apply the same steps that we saw up here, so 1 through 4, and we're going to apply it to this line right here. Okay, so step 1, time signature. It's the same time signature before, so this is 4 beats per bar, and this refers to the quarter note. All right, step 2 is to write out all of the beats above the line. So above the staff, we want to write out the beats. So this first bar is very easy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each quarter note is worth a beat. Okay, follow me along here. Now this first quarter note, again, easy. We can just write the 1 above it because the quarter note is worth 1 beat. But then we get our first case of subdivision. Okay, let's draw out another diagram out here just to help us out. Okay, this might be overkill, but I'm going to do it anyway. So we can see that we can divide a quarter note into 2 eighth notes. And as we see here, we have 2 eighth notes. So that means these 2 eighth notes that we see here and here are worth 1 quarter note. So that means this whole thing together is worth 1 beat. Okay? But it's the exact same thing that we saw here in our 2-2 example. We can just subdivide this second beat. So this is beat 2. We can just divide it into 2 equal parts. 2 and. 1, 2 and. Just like that. And the rest of the beat just follows suit. So 3, 4. So this sounds like this. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Or if you want to hear me say it, dup, dut, 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 dut. Just like that. Okay? Let's move on to measure 3. Okay? Now in this one, we start out, just like we did before, with 1 quarter note. And we can pretty much easily just drop a 1 on top of that quarter note because it's worth 1 beat. Now here we see 4 16th notes. If we return back to our diagram over here, we can see that each eighth note is going to be worth 2 16th notes. In other words, there are 4 16th notes in 1 quarter note, and you can see that right there, just like that. So that means these 4 16th notes and these 4 16th notes are worth 1 beat, okay? Collectively, they're worth 1 beat. That means we're taking 1 beat and dividing it into 4 equal parts. So in other words, each one of these are worth 1 quarter of a beat. How do we write that out? Well, we saw that up at the top. We write 2 because this lands on the first. This is on the first of beat 2. This next one is going to be a quarter into beat 2. We call that E, just like we saw above, 2E. This is 2 quarters in, so 2E and. And the last one, we just write 2E and Okay, 2E and And this is a half note. Now it's important to also realize the relationship between quarter notes and half notes, which looks something like this. There's 2 quarter notes. These 2 quarter notes can go into 1 half note. If each of these are worth a beat, then this is worth 2 beats. All right, so this is worth beats 3 and 4 combined, which is a total of 2 beats. So we can ask ourselves, what does this sound like? Well, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2E and a 3, 4. Or if you want me to sound it out, it sounds like this. 1, 2, ready, go. Da, 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 da. All right, just like that. Da, 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 da. Awesome. Okay, now I decide to throw this bar in because it has a tricky little rhythm right here. But I'm going to break it down so it's really easy for us. Okay, I'm just going to erase this whole thing here.
So give me a second to do that. All right, touch and delete it.
Awesome. So what do we have here? We have an eighth note and 2 16th notes. Okay, let's make a tree diagram showing the relationship between 16th notes and eighth notes. So this is what the relationship is between 16th notes and eighth notes. There are 2 16th notes that go into 1 eighth note. So that means, I'm going to draw this a little bit clearer because I can't really tell what those are. So when we say we have 1 eighth note, and 2 16th notes, that means we can, an equivalent statement would be, in terms of math, these 2 statements are exactly the same. The only thing we did differently was we took this eighth note and broke it up into two 16th notes. I have a video where I talk about the math behind the relationship between notes, so if this confuses you, please go check it out. This relationship is exactly the same. So this side of the equation and this side of the equation are exactly alike. The only difference is what they sound like. So that actually gives us a lot of hints on how we can read this rhythm. Let's say we have a set of 4 16th notes. Just like that, 4 16th notes. How would we read this in 4/4 time? Well, in 4/4 time, we have one quarter note gets one beat. So 4 16th notes get a collective total of one beat. So this would read like 1 E and 1 E and Now we can remember these first two here, these first two 16th notes equal 1 8th note. So we can sub in an 8th note here. So let's erase this and put in an 8th note. So notice we didn't remove the and at the end. All we did was remove the 1 E, because this first 16th note is worth 2 quarters, right? 2 quarters of a beat. So we're left with 1 and a. Da, 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 da. That's what this rhythm sounds like. So we can just write that right above here. 1 and a. Da, da, da. We've already seen a half note before. It's just worth 2 beats, so 2, 3. And we've seen 8th notes before. These 8th notes are just worth half of a beat each, so that's 4 and. So if I was to clap out this entire line of music, what would that sound like? Good question. It would sound like this. I'll count to 4 and then I'll play it. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. Awesome. Now that we've kind of gone over the math behind sight reading and tackled the biggest hurdles that kind of come with sight reading, I want to move on to some techniques we can use. All right, so using the exact same examples we used above, I want to reread these using 2 techniques. The first is called the Subdivision Method, and the second, my favorite, is called the Percussive Method, okay? So I'm going to start by using the Subdivision Method. And actually, the Subdivision Method is what I've been using up here to explain rhythm all along, because I like to start by using math and stuff like that to explain rhythm, because I think it's a little unique, and I think the math in music is a little overlooked sometimes, and it's really important to understand. So this is the Subdivision Method. I know a lot of excellent and talented percussionists who use this math method to read music. I think it's great, but it was never for me. I was never great, or I never liked math that much. I just didn't want to apply it in music all the time as well. So the Subdivision Method is definitely something that a lot of people use successfully, but it's not for me. That being said, let's go through this example using the same method we've been using here all along. Again, the first thing we always have to do, no matter what, I'm going to change the color here to this cool golden color. We have to look at the time signature. This means 2 beats per bar. This means the half note gets the beat. So each half note is worth 1 beat. Here we see 2 half notes, so we know each half note is worth 1 beat. This first half note is worth a whole beat, and then these quarter notes are each worth half of a beat. How do I know that? Well, let's look at our diagram here. We have 1 half note making 2 quarter notes, just like that. Okay, so if we go back up here, this would look like 2 and 1, 2 and. It's called subdivision because we're using division to divide up the beat. Applying what we just learned here, we can reason out that these first 2 quarter notes are worth a half beat each, so 1 and. Going back to our diagram, we can see that we can further subdivide quarter notes into 8th notes, right? Just like this. Just like that. So that means each 8th note is worth a quarter of a beat. So this looks like 2 E, and then this quarter note lands on the and of beat 2. 1 and 2 E and. Awesome. And then the last bar, nice and easy, it just ends off with 2 half notes. let's play this and see what it sounds like. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay? One more time. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Just like that. And I did it by subdividing. 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1 and 2 E and 1, 2. Just like that. Now let's move on to the percussive method. I've also heard it being called the Codley method, but I'm not sure if this word is right. I think I've just seen that on the internet. I like to call it the percussive method because it involves us making percussion sounds with our mouths. And I think this was always the most intuitive way for me to read rhythms because I think rhythm is something that's ingrained innately into the human mind. So I think this is a good way to learn rhythm, in my opinion. I'm going to clean up this table a little bit. So how this works is there's 3 steps to using it, and I'm just going to walk you through them very slowly to make sure we understand. First step is to look at the time signature. In this case, these 2 are the same bars, so it's the same 2 lines of music, but we're going to read them differently. This second line, it's in 2, 2. This 2 refers to 2 beats per bar. This second, the 2 on the bottom refers to, oh man, oh no, okay. This refers to the half note equaling 1 beat. Step 2, identify which note is equal to a beat. Okay, well in this case, our half note is equal to 1 beat. And the most important part is to assign sounds to the notes. And we're going to assign sounds to notes based on how many beats they're worth. If a note is worth 1 beat, so if the note is worth 1 beat, we are going to say ta. If a note is worth 1 beat, we're going to say ta. And in this case, we're going to see eighth notes, or in this case, we're going to see half notes, and they're going to be worth 1 beat. So every time we see a half note, we're going to say ta. Let's take back this example and write a ta under each half note. No matter where they are, just go through, and wherever you see a half note, write ta.
Wherever you see a half note, write ta. Awesome.
Now, what if a note is worth less than a beat? What if a note is worth half of a beat? Well, first let's ask ourselves, what note would be worth half of a beat? Well, if we're in 2/2 time, and the, whoops, what is happening? And the half note, so here we have our half note is worth 1 whole beat. If we divide that by 2, we get quarter notes. So each quarter note is going to be worth half of a beat. So our quarter note is worth half of a beat. Whenever we see a quarter note, we're going to say T. Okay? Whenever we see a quarter note, we're going to say T.
2 quarter notes there. Here's some more quarter notes. There's another quarter note here. Okay.
Now, what if we see something that's worth a quarter of a beat? What if we see something that's worth a quarter of a beat? Well, if we continue down this, first we have to find out what is actually worth a quarter of a beat. In this case, it's our eighth notes. In 2/2 time, eighth notes are worth a quarter of a beat. And let's write that down here in our little legend here. Awesome. We're going to say T or T-ka if there's 2 of them. In this case, there are 2 of them, so we're going to say T-ka. Now the easy part is we just have to say these rhythms out loud. So what's going to happen is I'm going to tap my finger, just like this, on my desk to the tempo or the speed that I want to play at. We're going to take it slow, just about this. And I am literally just going to read out what is being said underneath the staff. So I'll count to 2. 1, 2, ready, go. Ta, 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 ti, 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 tika, ti, ta, ta. And that's the rhythm. Now imagine how easy that makes it. Instead of, in my opinion, I think it's so much easier than going through and doing all the math on the spot. So although it's the same 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, and 2e and 1, 2, I think it's so much easier to say ta, 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 ti, 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 tika, ti, ta, ta. Right? I think it's so much easier to do this. Let's do another example. Okay, so let's erase what we've done here, and let's do another example. All right, and we're back. So here we're working with the time signature 4, 4. So let's write that out. So remember, step 1 is to identify the time signature. No matter what, always identify the time signature. In this case, we have 4 beats in a bar, 4 beats per bar, and our quarter note, what the heck? Our quarter note is worth 1 whole beat. That means we have 4 quarter notes per bar. Okay, 4 quarter notes per bar. So let's start our legend back up here. So we have quarter notes, according to our time signature, are worth 1 beat. So 1 beat is equal to 1 quarter note. And we just got that from our time signature. Remember, ta is the letter, or is the word that we assign to the 1 beat note. In this case, it's quarter notes. So let's go through this, and wherever we see a quarter note, let's write ta.
Ta, 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 ta. There's a lot of them. That's it.
All right, second step. What is worth half of a beat? Well, when we're working with quarter notes as our beat, each quarter note is worth, each eighth note is worth half of a quarter note. So that means our eighth note is worth half of a beat. So our eighth note is worth half of a beat. And we call it T. Let's go through and write T's underneath all of the eighth notes. I'm going to save this rhythm for last. Okay, now let's go to the quarter beat. What is worth a quarter of a beat? Well, if we're just going to continue our math, we can subdivide eighth notes even further into 16th notes. So let's write out our 16th note here. Write that, so our 16th note. And just like we did before, we're going to write T or T key if there's 2 of them in a row. So let's find out all of our eighth notes and write in T key. Notice how if there's 4 16th notes in a row, I wrote T key, T key. Okay, what do we do about these half notes? Well, half notes are worth 2 beats. Each quarter note is worth 1. 1 plus 1 equals 2. All right. I like the music math because it's pretty straightforward. So that means if we ever have something worth 2 beats, in this case it's going to be our half note, we're going to say ta, ah. And if you're curious, if we ever had something worth 4 beats, well, first, what would it be? Well, there are 4 quarter notes in a whole note. Therefore, each whole note is worth 4 beats. We would do ta, ah, ah, ah. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta, just like that. Dope. Let's write ta, ah under every single half note.
Ta, ta, ah.
Okay, now remember before we were reading a rhythm. I think it was this exact rhythm up here. Yes, right here. And we did all of this math just to figure out what it meant. Well, when we use the percussive method, we don't have to do any math whatsoever. All we have to do is look at our legend over here. We see that whenever there's an eighth note, we say T, and whenever there's a 16th note, we say T key. So what do? We just write T, tika, just like that, T, tika. And it's that easy to read rhythm using this method. Let's try to read this out loud using our methods that we just learned. Okay, I'm going to tap on the table to give our speed. This sounds pretty good to me. 1, 2, ready, go. Ta, 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 ti, ti, ta, 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 tika, tika, ta, ti, tika, ta, ti, ti. All right, just like that. One more time, maybe a little bit faster. 1, 2, ready, go. Ta, 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 ti, ti, ta, 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 tika, tika, ta, ti, tika, ta, ti, ti. All right. And notice that what we got here, so using our percussive method, it's going to sound exactly the same as we did here using the subdivision method. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and a 3, 4, 1, 1, and a 2, 3, 4, and. So it sounds exactly the same, except we're using our mouth to make percussive sounds. I think this is much more intuitive. Now, my next couple of videos are going to be focused around applying these two methods to various pieces of music, just to really solidify that we understand. But for today, I think this has been a pretty long video, so I think we're going to wrap up how to read rhythm there. If you found something new that you didn't know before, or you learned something that you didn't previously know, please subscribe, click like, leave a comment, whatever. I just like hearing your guys' feedback. If there's something that you didn't like, or if there's something that you don't understand, again, please feel free to leave something in the comments below. No one so far, well, I have a couple people leaving comments, but if you have any questions, I will get to them as soon as I can. Chances are you'll be the only person commenting anyway, so you'll probably get a very detailed response by me. So yeah, that's all I'm going to talk about today. That's the subdivision method, the percussive method for reading rhythms. Have a nice day, guys.